Well, I'm back now. Hopefully, you can hear me. I just did a live for almost 10 minutes with no sound, but I believe my sound should be working now. So, if you are watching and you have come back, thank you for your patience on my technical issues. I don't know what's going on because the mic was plugged in and it wasn't working. So I have re-attempted to do it, and I'm hoping that my friends will return to watch live so that we can have a conversation today about the Edmonton real estate market and what is happening in the market. So if you're watching live and you can hear me, please comment, like it, like the post. I did not realize I was silent the first 10 minutes of the video, which is unfortunate. So I will go over everything again so that we actually have sound. And if you're watching live, please let me know if you can hear me. All right, so in Edmonton's single family home market, we are going to talk all about that. What is happening? Is the market slowing down? Oh, good. You can hear me. That's perfect. So, the market, what I was talking about when I was muted is one, it's game day today. It's Edmonton Oilers, go Oilers, go. And it's my birthday tomorrow. So just side notes that I mentioned. Game day actually affects the real estate market is affected by playoffs. And I mean, it's not slowing it down necessarily, but definitely there are people who might not want to be watching the game or looking at houses because they want to watch the game tonight. They may or may not be all Oiler fans, but it is a reality. We are hockey town. So let's talk about what's been happening in our market just this last week. And then I'm going to dive into what I've been noticing and seeing in terms of the overall real estate market the first almost half of the year compared to what we've seen in Edmonton for the last 4 years, which is not very typical. So let's just dive into the listings. In terms of the current listings that we have active, now you would have seen this if you're watching me live and I was muted. You could have at least read this, but now let me share with you what I said. So every week we have been seeing the real estate inventory, which is listings, homes for sale, increase each week for probably the last few weeks, probably not few weeks, few months. And that is normal. So more people will list their houses February, March, April, May, and you start to see that climb. Now, where it's concerning is if it's just spikes up. Now, the reason it would spike up is because there's not enough sales to kind of counterbalance it. You might see less come on the market, but that doesn't mean, for example, that the math is 2,354 minus 2,201. That's the new listings. No, that's current listings. Some of those new listings could have been under contract already and as pending, or they could be sold. So it doesn't necessarily mean that's only what's gone on. It's just giving you part of the picture. And it's showing us that there are still sales happening. When you take a look at the pending sales in Edmonton's single family home market, you can see that Edmonton is still kind of pretty consistent. Nothing substantially higher or lower, just very consistent in terms of the numbers. Now, when we talk about consistency, we also talk about the surrounding areas. They're all very similar. They're all lower numbers because we have less houses for sale in those areas. The space itself is just smaller, right? It's not a big spot like Edmonton. Now, if you take a look at what's sold in the last 7 days, you're going to see very similar again. Like this went down by almost 50, like it's 298, 58 sales. So again, I'm not like, oh no, we dropped by that. It's only 1 week. And I will be doing a month of May update in a few weeks to show you like what's happened overall. These weekly updates are good to keep you up to date as in terms of like what's happening, but it doesn't mean you need to just take this in this scope, right? This is all in context to go along with all the monthly market updates I talk about. And then it gives you the proper education to understand what's happening in all of Edmonton. Now, I was kind of doing a little rant in silence, apparently, earlier when I was talking about what stipulates if the real estate market is busy or slow. Now, if you take a look at last year's sales compared to this year's sales, we are definitely, by the numbers, what the numbers say, numbers don't lie, that we are slower in the single family home market than we were last year at this time. You can see that we've 240 sales versus the 316. All the other places are all pretty, there's nothing like notable about that. But it is important to understand when I say that the market is slowing down, I'm not saying the market is now a buyer's market and, yay, hooray, we can lowball sellers and nothing's moving. I'm not saying that at all. The bottom's not falling out from under the sky. But what I am saying is that since 2020, Our market has been really busy. Now, when I say busy, I don't mean, oh, I was busy or my friend was busy. I mean the stats. When you look at the real estate market stats, how many homes sold, how many homes came on the market, that is what I'm using. You may hear from other realtors that they're super busy. You may hear that they don't say they're super busy, they say the market is super busy. I would always question and be a little bit more curious on what stipulates busy, hot market. Are they working in a very hot price point? If you are working between the 4 to 500,000 price point, if you watched my video about a month ago, I talked about the odds of selling in that price point is much higher. You see the number of sales than when you go down. So I just did a quick market update for one of my clients, and in the last 90 days, from 1 million to just on 2 million, so 1,999,999, there was 110 sales. You might think that's not very much for 90 days, but for over a million in Edmonton, that's quite substantial. Once you go over to 2 million and higher, you're now down to 11 sales. So that's a big drop. And what we've been seeing in the first part of the year is we have been seeing the higher end market take a little bit of a slower start. Now, I'm not talking just about the $1 million, I'm talking about the 700 to 900 range has been slower than it normally has, because in the last 4 years, we have seen that side of the market just move. It just keeps moving. And you're just kind of thinking, whoa, usually those take a while to sell, but they were all moving quickly, potentially multiple offers, sometimes not, but they would still move quickly. But what we've seen in the first 5 months of this year is that they are not moving that quickly. There's maybe not even a method to the madness. And I believe there's just not as many buyers buying in that market. So now the question is, did all the Ontario and BC buyers disappear? Because we do know that they played a strong role in our market. That influx of people coming into our province has made a big dent into the pricing of our homes, because when they were competing, they knew how to compete based on their context. The local Edmontonians were like, this is nuts. Like, why is this house selling for that much money? Now, was not just an anomaly for 1 year. This happened over the last few years, 4 years, which has now changed the prices of homes. We went up by 10% last year. My guess is we'll be at 8% overall this year for increase. But normally Edmonton is a 1 to 2%, maybe 3% increase year over year. So when you buy a house, it takes time to build up that equity. What I've seen is clients of mine who bought 5 years ago have made substantial equity, more than my clients who would have bought and stayed in their house for 10 years, because the bulk of the equity was made in the last 5 years. And so it is an interesting, I wouldn't say turn of events, but the market can only be so high. Like I've said this before, it's Edmonton. I don't think it's just going to keep crawling up to the top. And like it is crazy to think that the house um, that used to be 500,000 is now worth 625, 650. That is kind of weird to believe from the beginning, like beginning of before 2020 all the way to now. You're also going to see, if you're looking at new builds, you're going to see new builds start to change. I believe that their pricing, because they've been higher. So I would say 2018, 2019, even 2017, they were actually cheaper to buy a new build home than a resale home, right? Like it was just no brainer, even if you had to do window coverings and landscaping and all that fun stuff. Then they got greedy. I'm just going to say it because they did. The market started to pick up and be heated, and then they were asking for more money. They were not negotiating. They were upping their prices every couple weeks. It was nuts. Like it was like, okay, it's now 5,000 more. Now it's $10,000 more. I'm like, okay, what just happened? And you saw all those promotions go away. Some of the companies would say they have promotions, but really, if you looked at the numbers, there was no promotion. They like increased the price to have the promotions. I believe that those promotions are going to start to come. If they haven't already, they're going to start to come at the end of this year. Builders always want to hit quota, and they're not having good quota years. I'll tell you that. This last year wasn't good, and the start of this year has been pretty quiet, in my opinion, observing my builder friends. So what does that mean for you as a buyer? No, you cannot lowball. Second of all, lowballing is never okay. Like, I mean, you can find a realtor that maybe will help you with that, but I just don't believe in that. Think about, if you're the seller, do you want to get lowballed? No. Now, here's the thing. If that house isn't worth that price and it needs to be lowballed, that's a whole different story. but it doesn't mean that the seller is willing to give their house up for that amount that the market is saying. And then you might just need to move on to another house. So there is places to negotiate. There's places to get offers. But if, for example, you want to lowball a house by 50,000 under list or 100, that's not where we're swinging to, right? Because sellers market was, we have to compete in multiples. We'll give you anything, our firstborn, so we can get that house. To buyer's market is, I have all the power. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to budge. You need to have my price. We're definitely not there. We're not even in I believe, a buyer's market. We're still in a seller's market, but we're on that, like, if it was a pendulum and a balanced market is in the middle and buyers is here, sellers is here, I'd say we're like right here. We are in the seller's market quadrant still, swinging more towards a balanced market. We're definitely not swinging all the way over. You know that the interest rates are lower this year than last year, and it hasn't necessarily increased the number of sales. So I think that's really important for people to understand when they're trying to make a decision on when they're buying or selling a house. So if you're watching live, I'd love to hear from you. What are you hearing about the real estate market? You can put in a article that you've seen and we can debunk that together. You can tell me what you've been hearing about the areas. You can ask me about the neighborhoods, and I can let you know if it truly is a hot market or not. So while I wait for you guys to do that, I'm going to pull up some market stats of some of my favorite neighborhoods so that you can see what is happening. So I'm going to pull up the Hamptons. Hamptons is kind of an older area. Well, it's not older. It's just older than the new areas. And I'm going to take a look at the sales in the last 30 days, the last 90 days, 60 days, and 90 days. So in the Hamptons, we had 19 homes sell in the last 30 days. In the last 90 days, we had 50 homes sell. Okay. And let's just see what has sold in the last 30 days. So if you take a look at it, the price points range from $390 to $989. $390 would be the duplex homes here, and my guess for the $989 is probably the higher end. Yeah, this house here. I believe that is in like the what is it called? I'm Copperwood area, I believe. Oh, this is no. The address shows me that it's in like the cul-de-sac area. I think it's by the Blue Park. And that home sold in 16 days at $989. That's still pretty strong. The average days on market in Hamptons is actually only 19 days, and the highest was 49 days on market. So the Hamptons is moving pretty consistently, but the Hamptons also has a lot of homes in the highest demand price range. A lot of these homes were built in the early 2000s, and that's the price point. Let me just see if I go back. Yeah, 73. So we had 19 homes sell in Hamptons. Now let's go to a newer neighborhood like Rosenthal. Now, a lot of the new builds won't be logged on here. They only log them like on their own system. So I'm just looking here. 14 homes sold in the last 30 days. So that's only 5 less than the Hamptons. Not bad. And if you take a look at the sold, 352 to 786. So the highest price point isn't the high. Now, this is skewed because I know that there are homes in Secord selling for more than this in the new home market, and they don't get logged here on the system. So that's obviously not fully completely true. But you can see here, there are some homes that took 138 days, 110 days to sell. These are all the front attached. So front attached garage home, you're looking at basically 600 and higher. And then, I mean, there's one here for 530, but it was a split level. But, if you're looking for a front attached garage home, Rosenthal is a newer neighborhood. So unless you're buying in the first or 2 phases, then they'll be a little bit less. Let's take a look at Glastonbury. That's an even older area. Only 3 homes sold in the last 30 days. Smaller space too. 570 to 640. And what year built was this? These are smaller homes. But I will say, so 2005 and 2001, they're going to be wider lots, right? So some of these new builds, you go look at them and they're 2,000 square feet, and you go into this one and you think, Why does this one feel bigger? Because the lots, when they're wider, they feel bigger. The house feels bigger. When it's narrower, it feels smaller. And I don't know if you know about this. If you've been looking at new builds, the common lot size now is 22 and 24. Do you realize that 22 is like a half duplex, basically, but no adjoining wall? We used to have 26 as the small, 26 and 28. I think my last house in Secret was 28, and I thought it was too small. Because of lot size. It's the width. I'm not talking about the whole lot itself. And so the builders are smushing more and more and more homes together. And the older neighborhoods have a 50 by 150 lot. So if we take a look at Linwood, so these are homes built in the 50s. In the last 30 days, only 6 homes were sold. Now, the question too is how many were actually for sale, because not a whole lot comes for sale in there. And when they are, they're snatched. Like, with the exception of this one, everything else sold within less than 2 weeks. I mean, one day on market, 7 days. Now you see the styles of homes, they're all bungalows because that's a style of home. These 2 green homes, I mean, they sold for above list, right? Now you can see it's not that substantially more. This is 2 grand, this is 7,000. So you can kind of see here, it's definitely not selling for the same overage that we have been used to seeing in the last little bit here. I'm just going to put this here. The last couple new builds we were seeing in Edgemont was so congested. Right. Because the reality is that when there's 0 lot lines, there's no like land between the 2 houses. But then that also means on the sidewalk, there's not a whole lot of room either. And those garages are already so small, it ends up being really congested. And those 22 pockets are going to get even more congested. So wherever you go, there's new neighborhoods in Rosenthal called Rosemont, Secord. They're all like smushing more and more homes in there. So I think that if people start to be wise to that, they might realize buying an older home, though it doesn't have all its bells and whistles, will have the lot size, and then you could renovate the house. You can always change the finishings, but you can never change the lot size. So the lot size might be okay for the first bit, but then you're like, I have a brand new house, which is great, but the lot it's so narrow. Everyone can't fit. If you have kids like me that now have a car, and I have more than one kid, so it's going to end up being this space that just doesn't have the ability to even entertain and have people over because all the spots are getting taken. So I am wondering if anyone has any more questions or comments about the real estate market. You have me right now. I will not be here next week again. I'm out of country doing some cool stuff with my family, putting water filters on and helping families down there get clean water. So I will be back in a few weeks, and we'll be talking all about what's happened in the last few weeks, and also just in general what's happening in May, what's going on in June, because June, does it usually get slower? It does, but it might just stay similar. I don't actually think it's going to just drop off, but I do believe July and August probably will be quieter. The interest rates, I think there's some more slotted to be changed, but we haven't seen that when the rates lower this year, that all of a sudden we see a flurry of activity. I definitely haven't seen that this year. So if you have any questions, you're watching this after I'm live, feel free to comment below, and we'll talk next in a few weeks from now. Bye, guys.